Good morning and thank you so much for joining us on Africa This Morning. Ebru Africa. It is the 19th of May 2014. My name is Beryl Ooro. Let's start the bulletin with a look at the top stories.
We are concerned that many Kenyans are going to lose jobs.
Unnecessary travel advisories. MPs criticize UK, USA, France and Australia for their travel advisories on Kenya. United against Boko Haram. West African leaders in total war against the insurgent group. Guinea-Bissau election. Voters stream to polls to end military-backed transitional government.
We start in East Africa. The Parliamentary Caucus on Human Rights here in Kenya is requesting the ambassadors and high commissioners of the United Kingdom, the United States, France and Australia to reconsider and withdraw the travel advisories they gave last week. According to the caucus, the envoys should instead be helping Kenya in fighting terrorism as opposed to what they call is an indirect morale boost to the terror groups perpetrating the attacks.
Britain, the United States, Australia and France issued warnings to their citizens about traveling to and staying in Kenya. What followed was a massive exit of the tourists. The alerts have been termed as unfriendly by the Kenyan government, and now the Parliamentary Caucus on Human Rights has added their voice into these advisories. They say they will hurt the tourism sector and the economy as a whole.
We are concerned that many Kenyans are going to lose jobs. You remember this idea of going to Somalia still started with tourism. It was because of the kidnapping of a tourist. And so I think it is reckless, it is inhuman, it is inconsiderate for the same people that we were trying to protect to actually go ahead and issue advisories and hurt our economy.
The three members of parliament are wary of the strategies the Jubilee government is using to combat terror. They, however, say there is not reason enough to warrant travel advisory from the four countries.
We should not be seen to be issuing travel advisories, or they should not be seen to be issuing travel advisories just because they feel they may want to leverage on geopolitics in Africa. I think that for us is what we are also condemning. But it is a cardinal responsibility of government to ensure that everybody is safe.
In responding to the government's bashing of the advisories, U.S. envoy to Kenya Robert Godek says they are reviewing security measures over terror threats to include its staffing with no plans to close the embassy.
West African leaders meeting in France vowed to wage total war on Boko Haram, saying the Nigerian group, which has kidnapped more than 200 female school students, is no longer a local threat but has become West Africa's Al-Qaeda.
Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan arrives in France for a summit on the Islamist militant group Boko Haram, which is holding hundreds of schoolgirls captive. He sat down with leaders from the West and West Africa to flesh out plans to share intelligence, coordinate action, and monitor borders. They agreed to work together to wage, quote, total war on the insurgent group. French President François Hollande says the threat extends beyond Nigeria's borders.
Voilà le message que nous voulons envoyer.
The message we want to send is that we know the threat. It is serious. It is serious for the region, for Africa, and also for Europe.
La région, pour l'Afrique, et donc pour l'Europe.
Jonathan went a step further with his characterization of Boko Haram.
It's operating clearly as an Al-Qaeda organization, can better be described as Al-Qaeda in West and Central Africa. It's no longer the Boko Haram that came with the sentiments that Western education is prohibited and that women must not go to school.
Boko Haram has killed more than 3,000 people in its effort to establish an Islamist state in northeast Nigeria.
Still in West Africa, dozens of Nigerians have gathered at a popular intersection for a sit-in protest in the capital of Abuja. They were protesting against last month's abduction of more than 200 girls by the Boko Haram militants. The protesters expressed their frustration about the lack of information on the rescue operation.
Protesters joined other local and international leaders to speak out in support of Bring Back Our Girls campaign. It's barely a month and the protesters still continue to demand the government to intensify its rescue efforts for the liberation of girls.
When you take away a boy, it's a different thing. When you take away a woman, you have taken away a whole family. When you take over 200 girls away, you have taken almost an entire country, an entire people, an entire nation. So it is really, they are bearing it. There's nothing they can do. But they are very, very, very frustrated, very dejected, very bewildered.
Outrage over the kidnapping of the schoolgirls has led to President Goodluck Jonathan being criticized at home for his government's slow response in accepting the US, British and French intelligence in helping them hunt for the girls. The coordinator of Bring Back Our Girls campaign, Bala Usman, said they will march to the President Goodluck Jonathan's residence to know the government plans on the rescue operation of the girls.
Our next steps are we're planning to do a protest march to Mr. President. We're going to the Aso Villa on Thursday. We have written him a letter informing him that we wish to see him. We're requesting for an audience. We have not yet gotten confirmation, but even without a confirmation, we intend to march to the President on Thursday to ask him questions as citizens, to demand to know what is Nigerian government doing towards the rescue operations of our girls.
Meanwhile, the agreement reached in Paris between Nigeria and its neighbors to declare war on Boko Haram was welcomed in Abuja. The action plan will involve coordination of surveillance efforts aimed at finding the girls, the sharing of intelligence, and joint efforts to secure the porous borders in the region, according to the summit's conclusions. But some, however, noted that results still need to come as the country remains without news of the 200 abducted girls. In the longer term, the countries agreed to forge a regional counter-terrorism strategy under the auspice of the existing but barely active Lake Chad Basin Commission, with technical expertise and training support from Britain, France, the European Union and the United States.
Voters in Guinea-Bissau began casting their ballots yesterday in a presidential runoff election meant to draw a line under a 2012 military coup. Already mired in poverty, the West African nation has been stagnating since 2012 under the rule of a transitional government backed by its all-powerful military. The election is expected to renew cooperation between the chronically unstable West African nation, its donors and investors.
Former Finance Minister Jose Mario Vaz, candidate of the dominant African Party for the independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, secured more than 40% of the vote in the first round and is considered the front-runner. Vaz has vowed to pursue ongoing dialogue with the army if he wins. He faces Nuno Gomes Nabiam, the former chair of Bissau's Civil Aviation Agency, who won around 25% of the first-round vote. He comes from the Balanta ethnic group, the country's largest, and is seen as close to the army. As an independent candidate, Nabiam, an engineer by profession, has campaigned as the unifying choice capable of bringing stability to his country. Large crowds lined up in front of polling stations in the capital Bissau. Over 775,000 voters, most of them young and voting for the first time, cast ballots in the first round. The election will be the first since Njai agreed in May 2012 to hand power to a civilian transitional regime headed by President Manuel Serifo Namajo. Results are expected within 5 days of polling booths closing. Guinea-Bissau's last vote in 2012 was abandoned after soldiers under Army Chief Antonio Njai stormed the presidential palace just days before a scheduled runoff. Since then, Guinea-Bissau's economy has been anemic and drug trafficking has been fueling corruption. This has led to chronic instability and dysfunctional state, with its porous coastline and archipelago of islands provided fertile ground for Latin American drug lords looking for a hub to ship their cocaine to Europe.
From West Africa to Malawi, having just completed only 2 years in presidency as Africa's second female president, Joyce Banda is viewed as the possible favorite, will be running to maintain the top seat against her closest rival and brother of her predecessor, Peter Mutharika, during the country's 5th general elections on Tuesday. Malawi President Joyce Banda held her final campaign rally in her hometown of Songani, some 80 kilometers north of Blantyre on Saturday, ahead of the country's parliamentary and presidential elections on May the 20th. Banda took off the top job following the sudden death of Bunguwa Mutharika and described her 2-year term as the head of the South African state as successful. She listed the uncovering of the so-called Cashgate scandal last year and the arrest of people who swindled the government of funds as her best achievement. The Cashgate scandal forced the government to shut down its payment system so that it could investigate over $4 million that went missing, delaying the payment of salaries of teachers, nurses and doctors. But Banda says not everyone is happy with her campaign to stamp out corruption.
I came in and I decided that I had to choose between my career and my people. And I chose the people of Malawi because I realized that 7 months, and I was advised that 7 months before elections was too short for me to tackle corruption. Because the people that are benefiting from it, they will fight you back. They will smear it onto you. They will bring you down. You may never get out. I said, yes, I don't have a choice. I have to choose my people. I have to choose Malawians.
Banda said if she loses the election, she hopes whoever wins will continue the fight against corruption.
Even if I lose the election, somebody who comes will have to heed the call of Malawians that enough is enough.
Banda, Peter Mutharika of the Democratic Progress Party and Malawi Congress Party's representative Lazarus Chakwera all have a fighting chance to win the election according to opinion polls. In what seems as a slow but safe crawl to desired democracy that failed to take hold after the toppling of former President Muammar Gaddafi, voters in Libya's capital Tripoli cast their ballots on Saturday to elect 4 new municipal council members as part of a gradual electoral process. The electorate in Libya's capital Tripoli cast their ballots on Saturday to elect 4 new municipal council members. The city has been divided administratively into 4 municipalities: Tripoli at the center, Sug al-Jamaa at the east, Abu Salima to the south, and Hay al-Andalus to the west. Turnout was average at 2 polling stations in the city center after a lackluster campaign and with an apparent lack of public interest in the process.
The Libyans feel depressed due to insecurity and chaos. Therefore, we feel it's the first step to overcome the current problems in Tripoli.
The newly elected councils will replace those formed after the 2011 uprising that toppled long-time dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Libya's interim government has divided the country into 102 municipalities with a view of promoting local governance and decentralization. The electorate process began last November in the east of the North African nation. Saturday's polling in the capital comes a day after clashes in the second city, Benghazi, in the restive east between forces run by a retired general and Islamists that killed 37 people. After more than 40 years of Gaddafi rule, Libya organized the first free election in June 2012 for 200 members of the General National Congress or Parliament.
In fact, the most important thing for Tripoli is that the municipal council will be strong enough to guarantee security. I'm very optimistic towards this election and encourage all Libyans to vote and not to be negative because it's the future of our children.
But since the fall of the former regime, the country has remained plagued by lawlessness and violence, with the interim authorities so far unable to restore stability. No date has been set for the results to be announced. To South Sudan, the husband of a Sudanese woman who has been sentenced to death on Saturday said he would appeal against the ruling. Miriam Yahya Ibrahim, who was charged with adultery for marrying a Christian man, has been ordered to abandon the Christian faith and return to Islam.
Mariam's husband, Daniel Wani, who was pronounced innocent but their marriage revoked. Revoking of this marriage meant that his son was no longer his and the one coming was not going to be his either. Hence, this innocence meant nothing and said he would appeal for himself and his wife. He also expressed fear for the health of the wife and the unborn son while she was kept in a prison cell, considering the wife could give birth any time.
Martin and my wife, they are all in prison and she is pregnant. She could give birth at any time. From today to the 1st of June, she may give birth. I'm afraid that being in prison is dangerous for her. So if they would allow me to take her to the hospital that she delivered Martin in, even if it was under the watch of security guards, I would be thankful.
Wani, an American citizen, expressed his disappointment with the American embassy, expressing their lack of interest regarding the issue. Their intervention came after the issue got press coverage, but it was already too late.
Considering I am an American citizen, I am disappointed with the American embassy's position from the beginning of the whole case. At the start of the issue, I reported it to them, but they didn't take much interest, particularly the consulate. They said they didn't have time. In fact, the last time they said they didn't care much about the case. They came late. They intervened when they saw the issue was getting press attention, but the intervention was late.
The lawyer and head of Miriam Yaha legal team, Mohammed Al-Nur, said there was pressure on Mariam's defense team. With direct threats from missionary groups, they said nothing will prevent them from representing Mariam and are proud of Muslims representing Christians.
Kenya started her campaign to qualify for the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations with a 1-0 win over Comoros. Our reporter Hesbon Mugambi was at the stadium and had the details.
Joan Omolo scored the all-important goal. The Belgium-based player broke the deadlock with a shot in the 35th minute to give Kenya the lead. Comoros began the match the stronger side, with Kenya taking time to settle down. Kenya had a goal disallowed for infringement when Joan Omolo rose above the park to head Ayubu Timbe's free kick into the net. It has been 10 years since Kenya last qualified for the African Cup of Nations. It has started the campaign well with a 1-0 win over Comoros.
It's a tough game. Now I told the last time. Now don't find small team. All the team in Africa is the same. All come play with determination. When you play against one team, say all behind. It's not easy to find solution. And you see, all these players is competitive. People say it's a team in Ireland don't have football. All these players play in Europe, And I see only one thing, I take only the victory for this game.
The current Kenyan squad boasts of a number of big names, including team captain Victor Wanyama of Southampton.
I can say the result was good. Our aim was to score, but they came to defend. In the return leg, the game will be open and we'll take advantage.
McDonald Mariga, Inter Milan midfielder who has been sidelined with injury for nearly 2 years, made an appearance for the first time since October 2011. The return leg will be played in 2 weeks, with the winner from the two-legged match meeting either Liberia or Lesotho. Reporting for Ebro Africa News, I'm Hesbon Mugambi.
That story brings us to the end of the Bulletin on Africa this morning. Join us next as we take a look at other stories making the lead on our social media platform segment On Trend.